Yesterday I asked some questions that I hope some of you have been thinking a little bit about. I think we're going to do just an informal discussion on what Nordic Roaster is going to be, what it's for, if you like the format, if there's something we want to change. But very important thing, when you say something, we'll pass the mic because we're recording this, so if we don't speak into the mic, it won't be on the film. You're going to be famous. Should I just go through, or? Yeah, let's go. Yeah? So the first question I asked yesterday, Nordic Roaster is, today we're 50 people, this event, and I think the idea was to keep it small and simple and mainly for roasters, but the question I asked yesterday was, should we expand? Should it be for baristas as well? Should it be for home roasters? Can it be for everyone, or just Nordic countries? Or I'm sure the Germans will disagree if we close the wall. And can it be in different countries? Anyone wants to comment on that?
Good morning. I think that the important thing for us today is to find out for who and why are we doing this. And in my mind, it's for roasters, for professionals, and we should make a subcommittee for teaching others what we do, but it should be for professional roasters. But we have to define first, why are we doing this? And in my mind, we do it because the Nordic roast is different than the roast in the rest of the world. And that's why this is interesting. That's why I'm here.
No, I totally agree about that, because I mean, one of the tables was at the last table where suddenly the coffees were darker roasted, and suddenly it wasn't a Nordic style roast. And suddenly it's a totally different cupping in my mind. So I think it's important that we sort of define the Nordic roasting, and also, yeah, for me it's also important that it's a professional venue where everybody's there to share. Yeah.
Yeah, I also agree on that. If we want to be small, keep it simple. I think professionals should be here only. I want everybody to chip in so we can concentrate this, because it's a very small time we're here together. So we need to be here and be focused and enjoy the Nordic roast style. But I don't think we should keep it a secret, but I think this should be, I don't know. If we want to keep it small and simple, we should keep it Nordic. If we want to expand it a little bit, we could take the rest of the world with us, in my mind. But small and simple, let's keep it professional and Nordic.
Yeah. I agree. I think we have some Nordic common values and ideas about coffee and quality, and I think it's important that we meet the people that come to the Nordic Roaster have the same values about quality and transparency and these things as we have, but if they are then from the Nordic countries, from Germany or somewhere else, might not be that important, as long as it's still possible for all the Nordic roasters to attend the venues, because I think if we need to travel every second year to Japan and then to the States or something, then we'll lose some of the smaller local roasters. So that's a danger, I think, if we open it too much.
So keep it for professionals and roasters, that's what we're saying, or? How do we prevent, let's just hypothetically say that we put 50 tickets out on the internet, and then 3,000 Japanese teenagers who want to learn how to roast buy the first 50 tickets.
You just apply for buying a ticket. That means somebody has to see if you fill up the criteria, meaning being professional roaster from any country for the venue in a Nordic country. That's my idea.
So exclusive to Nordic roasters?
No, open to any roasters.
But we prefer Nordic.
No, but You misunderstand me. You misunderstand me totally. But that you apply to go to the Nordic Roaster event. Then in your application, there's a title, your job description. If you're a roaster, you can join. But if you're a Japanese teenager only listening to music, you cannot come.
Good. Are we sound on that? Is there anyone else who wants to comment?
Well, as somebody that is not Nordic, I probably can give you some of my feedback that I already shared last night. I totally agree that Nordic roasting is not something that is probably only focused on Nordic roasters. So if you live in one of those countries or you have the nationality, but I think the Nordic style of roasting is just very particular. And I think if you're interested in that particular style, this is the event. So I think you shouldn't go espresso roasting, darker roast, but you should do exactly the style that you're well known for. And then everybody can attend who is interested in knowing much more about that. That's it.
Good feedback. Anyone else? No? Robert, yeah?
There are two things I'd like to bring up. Firstly, I like to disagree sometimes, and I think it makes a more interesting discussion. I'm not so sure that there is one Nordic roast style. I agree with you. And I don't think that we should try to make one either. I think we should nourish the differences. That is a lot more interesting, and I think it will always be. Second thing, to keep it small is nice and neat and maybe necessary. On the other hand, we have just seen the very beginning of this. So in a few years' time, maybe as soon as next year, there will be a dozen more tiny roasters out there in this region. And then what do we do? Do we stick to 50? Or what do we do when there's 200 roasters out there? Do we stick to 50? In Norway, 40 years back, there were 200 roasters in the smallest of these countries, except from Iceland. So small and neat and nice is cool, but maybe not possible to stick to 50. A number that's been brought up several times. So those were two things.
I agree with you. It's very difficult if we make big events because we lose a lot of the closeness that we had yesterday during the cuppings. It's also much harder to make an event for 150 than for 50. But what we could do is today say, yes, we want to continue this next year. How many do we define going to the next event? And at each event, we define in the end how many can go to the next one. How big do we want it to go or how small? I think that the Nordic roasters are roasting very much differently, as you say, but it is a different style than the American style of roasting. So we have a style in the Nordic countries.
My point is, let's say that there is a style. I would disagree, but let's say that there is a style. I don't think that we should try to just have one style and nourish one way and make it a cult, or try to make it a cult. Let's nourish the differences. Maybe there's something new to be found out in the future that is very different from what we do and better.
Yeah, I don't think the forum is made to teach everyone how to roast the same. I mean, during this yesterday, we actually didn't talk about roast at all. You talked a little bit about it, but just your experience with the machine. So I think that was nice. And I agree, you can see anything from charcoal to green coffee in these countries. So just a comment, because we just organized the MBC in Denmark as well, and it was a lot of work, I know, for 150 people. Although it's 3 days, the amount of sponsors we got was much more than here. And because the sponsors are sponsoring that event, I think some of the feedback was, no, we want to sponsor the embassy and that's enough, not the Nordic roaster. So one of the issues is if we want this to make this bigger, we need also a lot more money. And how do we get that?
Thank you, Tim. I think we have to find out first how many days do we want to meet for. Because if it's 1 day, it's much more simpler to produce than if it's 3-day event, it's very hard. And I think we are in a different place than at the Nordic Barista Cup, because we want to meet to cup. We want to meet to discuss coffee. It's not so challenging in terms of the venue and other competitions and stuff like that. So we can keep it in a cheaper way. I don't think it needs to be so expensive. And I think there will be sponsors out there if we do the right decisions today.
Yeah, I agree with what has been said, because, for example, the Specialty Coffee Association has tried the first 5 years of its existence to define specialty, and they never succeeded. So it's just, you call it something and you make a forum and you hope that the right people join, and then you can work with the application. That's one thing. But I was hoping maybe that we could also start actually to form some kind of a guild, without calling it a guild, but calling it a forum, so Nordic Roaster Forum. In this way, we open up geographically, so it's not like you cannot be in the Nordic Roaster Guild because you are south of Flensburg, you know. So we open up geographically, and we open up generally to have other members. It doesn't have to be a big membership fee. So we could also have some events during the year. So if Tim is opening a new roastery or something, an extra outside of town or something, he could invite people to come and maybe combine it with some educational, you know, so there could be activities throughout the year where you can invite members, things like that, and have our own website as well.
Tim mentioned that we actually didn't talk about roasting yesterday. What about the content? Should it be more roasting, or is it everything around it? I think that's interesting too.
I mean, for me as a roaster, to discuss actually roasting techniques is not as useful, because every roaster is very different and every preference of style of roasting is very different. But for me as a roaster, personally, I like to learn a lot more about origin country, where we actually buy the green beans. And that's one of the things that I really valued yesterday, was Carl's lecture about Ethiopia, because you get a very different insight when you invite people like that, who are finally able to present their work in origin. And for me as a roaster, that's far more important than discussing temperature and airflow.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I think we're a little bit hung up on trying to define our style when it's clearly not a style at all. I think from city to city in Scandinavia, you can get all sorts of different roasting styles. So I think I was the same yesterday. It was really interesting to hear sort of the challenges in Ethiopia, and I think that should be the focus. I think is to learn more about how to get better coffee from different origins and how that works, and the sort of inner workings of importing, exporting, and that kind of thing. And I think that's where the focus should be, instead of worrying about what style we want to roast the coffee in, because it's never ever going to be defined. I don't think that's going to happen. So to have like a focus country perhaps, which we sort of had this time, would be a lot more interesting for me. Not necessarily. That kind of restricts us a little bit, but if it works out that way, then great. And the other thing with not defining it being sort of a style, it means we can open it up to everybody from Germany or wherever. But I think it's important that we have it in Scandinavia or the Nordic countries, because the majority of the people are from, you know, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, etc.
I found it's been really great to be here, and a lot of good information about the origin and everything. I don't think we should work with talking about how we roast the Nordic style and what temperature we drop the coffee in and anything like that. Just being here, I've been able to find other people roasting on a Gießen. So we've been able to have the informal talks beside the lectures, learning from each other, finding the common questions we have in. So I think it's just enough having this forum. We learn, we get the answers on the questions we have with that certain person that has the common questions. And what I would like to see among the lectures is maybe more what happens inside the roast, what happens with the bean, stuff that's not connected to a certain style or roaster, but that we all think about every day when we work with the coffee.
I took it. Can I keep it? Of course, all the things that have been said are valid, of course, but I think it would be not good if we put the lid on the desire to learn about or to share about techniques, or let's put it this way, the craft that we do or that people do when they roast coffee. So to have a forum for roasters that are craftsmen and not talk about the craft, also the technical aspects of it, would be very restrictive, I'd say. Not to keep that as one of the main things to do in a forum like this. And then to begin with, when people were saying things, you were saying roasters, 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 roasters. Now, how do we define a roaster then? Because if we open up for, which I think makes total sense, to talk more about not only origins, but the green coffee itself and the trade and all of that, then a person that is doing that might not be a roaster at all. Is he or she allowed then to, of course, share in this forum, but is he or she allowed to attend, to just be a member? I think yes. How about the cuppers? There are people out there, all they do is to cup coffee. So bigger companies, that they have positions that with people that only do that craft. Which leads me to the fourth thing that I think that this forum should be about. And it could be a focus all on its own for 1 year or for one event, and that is language. Coffee language. How do we describe what it is or what we think it is? Not only the words we use, but how do we structure this language so that, or the words, the experience with what words to make it a language that we understand between us and that we communicate with the world outside our businesses, outside our countries. So I think that is becoming more and more important, because unfortunately I could not be here yesterday, so I have not even tasted the 4 or 5 different roasts that were done on the same coffees. What would have been very interesting would have been to see not only the different coffees roasted by different people, but how they would describe them. And then there could be an analysis of whether there is a correlation between a language that one is putting on his or her coffee to what the rest of the group actually thinks. So we should bring linguists into this forum just as much as cuppers and craftsmen.
Okay, if we should come to some kind of definition of what to do, can we agree upon to make an event for coffee professionals from all over the world in regards of roasting? That means we define it as you apply for going to Nordic Roaster next year, and if you have a profession inside coffee roasting, you will be accepted. It could be cupping or whatever we think is interesting. We focus on origin green coffee, cupping, brewing, and roasting in chemical terms, because not to define discussing temperature. What else? Is that the definition of next year? Because it sounds here as if we should do an event. It's just a question of when. If we do it 50 people, we could ask Mats if we could be allowed to come here, and he could pick the date.
Thank you. One of the things that I'd like to see for next year would be a little bit more focus. When you have a speaker talking for, say, 30 minutes on a subject, maybe the best one yesterday, right here, very focused on what he was talking about. And I didn't get that with every speaker. So I'd like to see more focus. I mean, this can be a forum where we actually learn something and not just, you know, what neat thing did you do last year, but be more specific. Because this could be a good forum for learning. But then it just needs to be a tiny bit more focused.
We need people to, we need some people to come up with ideas and also come up with people that we can invite to lecture. It's pretty hard. I mean, my network is not the biggest in the world, especially when it comes to good lecturers. And sometimes you have to dig a lot to get lectures. But we need, I'm running out of ideas, and we need people to volunteer to help arrange an event like this, to come up with ideas, to invite people to lecture. So any idea, I'm not sure we should use the whole day passing the mic on to get ideas now, but if we could email ideas to Björg, what's your email address?
It's on the website.
It's on the website. That would be fantastic. Any idea, it can be anything, because then we will get a much more variation in the program, I think, and probably also more focus.
Yeah, should we move on to the next? Yeah. Let's go.
What kind of lectures do you want? Do you want people coming to talk about coffee countries? Is that what you're implying, or anything? Okay.
Anything that we can learn as a roaster. I think that anything is interesting, but we have to try to keep a red thread during a day like yesterday, so it makes sense what we do from morning the whole day through. So anything in my mind is interesting, as long as we can put it into a day event like yesterday.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be necessarily a focus country every year. It can also be a focus theme, for instance. Like if Mikael has been doing a lot of research on acids in coffee or something related to roasting, that could be a theme throughout the whole day. I know there's scientists we could invite to talk about it and so on. I mean, just from top of my head. But I don't necessarily think we should restrict it to always having a focus country, because then at least half the day, when yesterday was a very short day, and at least half the day needs to be related to the topic, I think. Should we move on? So remember to email some ideas to Björg. I think that's a good idea. Maybe you could send out a reminder for people, for the ones who were here. Yeah. So next thing we talked about yesterday was normally in the Nordic Barista Cup we've had sort of a charity project. It could be buying computers for a school in Colombia. It could be pretty much anything. We discussed, I think last year, the possibility to maybe team up with a cooperative in a producing country to be able to sponsor them with some processing equipment, education, in order to develop the quality of the coffee, and then the members of Nordic Roaster would be able to have priority on buying the coffee, of course, to the market price and everything, but might be an interesting idea. Is there any, first of all, do we want a charity project? And second of all, any ideas what it could be? Does it have to be the same every year? Could it change?
It's interesting that we go so much yesterday into Ethiopian coffees, but could we make a difference down there, making a project, being the same in a village every year that we give money to get a cupping going on, to get a roasting going on, so that we could make a difference? Isn't that why we're here? Because if we put money together, make a 5 or 10 year program, then we can make a lot of difference. It doesn't have to be a lot of work or a lot of money, but if we do it, I think we could put a subcommittee down with 3 or 4 members making a plan, and we could just slowly start and see where to go. But this means we have to put in energy. It's very easy to have a Nordic roaster going on, and Björk and I being the administration, we make an event every year and you just come. But if we want this to have an effect, Nordic roaster should be an organization which all of us wants to put energy into. Why are we here? Why do we do this? Just to come cup and meet each other yesterday, go for some beers? Or do we want to make a difference? Do we want to change something?
Are you giving it to me? Yes. Okay. I am opinionated, and I do have an opinion on this one as well. I don't like charity projects, and I certainly dislike the term. But again, that has to do with language, because it says, the signal is that we give stuff, and we give stuff because we feel sorry for. That is easily a feeling. What the most costly thing that we have, and that we should give, and we're giving it to each other in a form like this, is knowledge, education. But stuff, no. Then I think we fall into the loop of the NGOs and hva kaller man sånne støtteorganisasjoner og den type prosjekter som ganske selvrettferdiggjørende. Self-righteous projects. We should do something that has an impact in wherever somebody goes, but that requires time, and that's the most costly thing that we have, and our knowledge, our experience that is built up over many years, maybe. So that I think would be cool. But computers, well, maybe there's equipment that needs to be with it. With the education or with the knowledge or with whatever that is shared. But to give stuff and to call it charity, but that's just my opinion. I'd rather pay more for coffee than to pay a lower price and then go back the next year and say, hey, this is the margin we made, so you're welcome to have 10% of it.
Thank you. First of all, I'm glad people enjoyed the presentation yesterday. For me, it was a real privilege and pleasure to be here. On the subject of charity, I have to say I completely agree. I think the best thing that all of you can do and that everyone in the coffee industry can do is continue buying and drinking and paying high prices for the best quality coffee. It sends the right message to farmers. Personally, at TechnoServe, even though we are an NGO, we believe very strongly that a hand up is better than a hand out. And there are different ways that you can do that. I think I can extend an open offer to anyone if they want to come to Ethiopia or any of the countries that we're working in during the harvest or afterwards and just cup coffees and give that feedback to farmers or cooperatives, help them improve the quality. It's an open offer. I think that type of exchange is very valuable for roasters, for buyers. They learn about the issues at origin, and for farmers and folks like me, we get all of that feedback and that perspective that you have. So that's very valuable. If there is something that is also necessary when it comes to processing equipment, one of the difficult things that we have is getting access to finance. It's 10 times easier to get someone to pay to give something away for free. It's much harder to get a loan to do that thing. But if you were interested to, for example, put together a guarantee fund which would allow farmers to borrow from the bank to purchase new equipment or other types of investments, then that's something that would allow them, they're still paying for it, and that money goes a lot farther. It's one of the big areas that we struggle with, getting access to that type of long-term financing. But again, I think that just even something as simple as coming for a week or 2 weeks and staying down there and working in the cupping lab is an incredibly valuable contribution.
I agree that I think we can make a lot of difference by paying more for our coffee, as long as we make sure what we pay more is going to the producers. That's important, not just paying more to anyone we buy the coffee from. So I think it would be a good thing if we can focus on trade. How do we secure that we can pay more to the producers? That will really make a difference if we in the Nordic Roasters work on that, I'm sure.
For me, that sort of goes without saying that we should do that, but we should do that every day, not just during this event. I do believe maybe a valuable thing for like a cooperative in Ethiopia would maybe not for us just to go down there, but also to invite them to come here to see how the marketplace is where the coffee is actually sold. I think that would be valuable too. So maybe we should have, like you say, just a fund where we either invite people to come or we go down or something like that. But I also think like trying to do what TechnoServe does a lot would be also an interesting project. If you could find a small co-op or something to work with over time, not necessarily give away equipment, but you know, structuring and working with someone who has experience in that might be interesting. I don't know.
Any other comments? You're very quiet today. I think what Carl is saying is interesting, and as Robert and Carl together, the most valuable thing we have is our knowledge. So we in some way could put that energy together to get the knowledge down there. It's interesting. And yes, we have to find money, because it will not work without money. Are we interested, the people here, to do some kind of a fund, a project, where we all put in money, controlled by somebody that needs to put in the energy, to perhaps make a foundation that could help Carl getting loans? Is that what we're talking about? You always have an opinion, Robert.
På norsk så har vi et ord som heter munndiaré. Does that have a translation? Det var ingen som lo, så det var ingen som skjønte det, tror jeg. Okay. English. What was your question? Right. It sounds like a good model. It's certainly better than just giving away things like I obviously dislike. But I think the key word he was using is trade. We should help improve the trade. That is what I'm striving for, and all of us probably want to see more, is that we run businesses, and we want to work with other people as people running their businesses. And sometimes he or she's called a barista running a coffee shop, or it's a dairy that we buy milk from, and we buy coffee from a farmer. It's another business. And I have never thought of giving gifts to the dairy owner's daughter for Christmas. But I do want the good milk at the good price for what quality it is. So I think we should have that same mentality when we turn our back and go to the origin of what we do, which is where the coffee is grown. And we should do business, and we should train ourselves, because most of us, I guess, none of us came from coffee business. There are very few families in which you can come from, you know. So most of us came from some other place in life, some other professional place probably. I certainly did. So I had to learn the business myself, and I'm sure most of you did as well. This business anyway. So we're out there, we're new in doing business, and I meet farmers that some are very business-minded, and some are not. But I love to see when they become business people in a good way. They're good people, then they become good business people as well. So for us, because I shouldn't say that we're poor, because we're not. But we're all tiny businesses. And we try to survive doing what we do. And of course, we all try to make money that surpluses by the end of the year. We hope that there's some money left over, right? But I'd rather spend more for good coffee, of course, because it's a product that I dearly want. Okay, so it costs more. The value is in the quality of it. But give that to the business that made that product. Money between businesses. I think we need to learn this business, but we also need to teach and teach business to other business people. So that said, our best contribution is our knowledge, and if you go together, you get hold of funds probably somewhere else. If you're allied with somebody who knows something about coffee that you don't, so you, with your connections, with money on one hand and with knowledge on the other, knowledge that you don't have, then you can get money from the money source. This is one kind of money source, but we're running small businesses. So I'm not opposing it as an idea. I don't know if this makes sense, what I'm saying, really. I'm trying to make sense. I think I should give this microphone to somebody else.
Mr. Thompson?
It makes a lot of sense what you're saying, but I think we should be careful not to waste time to preach to the already converted and just get on with sort of how can we do this, sit down a committee, start working with Carl, and if we all agree that we should see how this project can come together and how we can find the money and contribute with our knowledge.
So if you're the chairman, who are the other members? Any hands? Carl? So Carl and Thompson, anybody else? So now you're two. Yeah, but you need Björk and me, we're in the administration, so we'll be there as well. Yeah, we're always there. Good?
It depends on how you decide. If you keep it Nordic, I'm out. Yes, so, no, but you know what my, so I'm willing to help Jan and I, it's not a problem. But what I'm saying, if you decide it's going to be Nordic, then I'm out, because I'm Dutch. I'm not part of the Nordic.
From North Holland, that's okay.
I'm not from north of Holland, but no, but so for me, it's how the decision is going to be from you guys. Is it going to be Nordic? It's not Nordic. Okay, then Jan and I are very willing to help you to do so. So you have 4. I decide for Jan. No.
In the mic.
I don't want to be a part of. I want to be a part, but I don't think I can do that much in this kind of committee. But the only way I know how to collect money is to sell coffee, and I think one way of financing this kind of project would be, now I had the opportunity to roast for this cupping yesterday. That means that I have 45 kilos of Jirgachef, fine coffee, back home at the roastery. And I would love to sell that coffee to our customers, writing something on the label about Nordic Roaster Forum, what the money goes to, and whatever we can do. And I think in this forum we're quite a lot of businesses that always need good coffee and news on the shelf. And maybe there's a way of coming together, sharing the coffee, labeling it together, putting it on the shelf, and sending the money to a good project. You don't think so, Robert? No? Sorry.
I don't like those stickers.
I can do a real nice for you.
I'm not talking about you, but...
Thank you. It's a good idea. We start having money already. Any more comments for a charity project? Carl?
Let me just say one final thing, and again, this is not, I gave the idea of a guarantee fund as this is an example of something that if you want to raise some money, would be a nice way of getting more out of it than just purchasing one thing and having a once-off type contribution. It wasn't a request by any means, but again, we'd be grateful if anyone is interested in doing that. One other thing that I just want to add, when it comes to the trade, something that was quite interesting in chatting with many of you yesterday is everyone is incredibly concerned about quality, but when people were asking how can we get some of these coffees, how are they priced, that type of thing, I was struck by the fact that many of the people I talked to had no concept of the export price for the coffee. Most of them are used to buying just the coffee which is landed here in Scandinavia or in Europe somewhere, and when I gave an FOB price in dollars per pound or ex Djibouti or ex Addis Ababa, very few people had a sense of what that meant. And so I think it's also incredibly important that as your companies grow and as you try to diversify your supply chains, you try and gain that understanding of the export prices and the costs throughout the supply chain, because I was quite happy that fair trade did not come up at all yesterday. But one of the inherent flaws in fair trade, as I see it, is that they set a minimum export price for the coffee. That any farmer who is receiving, or any cooperative that is selling at a lower price than that is not eligible to have their coffee certified fair trade. The reality is that there can be many things between the export and the farmer, which can take a different margin. And so there's often very, very little relation between the price that is being paid at export by the buyer and what the farmer is actually getting. And I believe the same is also true for what is being exported and then what is being sold here by the importer or by the green distributor. So I certainly encourage you to learn more about this, because especially at Origin, that is how we're looking at things, and I think it will certainly enhance your understanding of the business and also from that Origin perspective. Thanks.
It's good you're in that committee, Carl.
I think the word charity is a word that a lot of us hate, because we want to pay good money for good coffee, and fair trade is sort of the opposite of this in many cases. Could we change the name to development project or something, and then just remove the word charity from it, and then never talk about it again?
We'll never mention the word again. So is that the ending of this, and we can go on to when? Tim asked yesterday, should it be a separate event like we had yesterday? Should it be part of NBC? Should it be close to NBC? During NBC? We have a comment down here.
Hello. I would love to have the NRF 2 days in advance to NBC, so we could make roast workshops and compare the results at the NBC. That's pretty much the idea.
Other comments?
I think it's important that we separate the events if it's possible. Could be in the same time as it was in Norway last year, because they had the facilities and organizations strong enough to have 2 events in a row, but that could be difficult in some cases, some countries, or wherever we decide to be. So I think we should be open to that one. It's not really a problem. So it's more that, okay, do we have an organization committee, and do we want to do this, and where should it be next year? Something like that is that's a more relevant question, I guess.
But Matt, you didn't answer the question. Can we come back here? We are allowed to come back. We behaved. Good. So is it like we should do it in conjunction with NBC a day or 2 before? So you have an event before the event?
How long does the event run for next year? 2 days? 1 day?
You're asking if it's 1 or 2 days next year. It's up to you guys. What do you think? Is 1 day enough? Should it be 2?
I think if it's 1 day, then tacking it on to the NBC would be probably smart, I think. I think most people in here are probably doing enough traveling as it is. So to separate the 2 events is just, blocking out 2 more weekends or 2 more days out of a year that you may not be able to afford to do. I don't know if that's the case or not. Casper?
I was just thinking that if Nordic Roaster is for roasters and the NBC is mostly for baristas, then, I mean, it's 2 different kinds of people coming, so why not have it separately?
Yeah, I just want to say that I come from a big factory. We can't close it down for Nordic baristas, so I like it to be 2 different events. So some can go to the Nordic Roaster and some can go to the Nordic Barista Cup. So I didn't get to go to Copenhagen, but I'm here now and I'm happy about that. So let's keep it separate.
But what you're saying means that it has to be weekend as well. That it cannot be during work days, Monday to Friday.
Not necessarily, no.
It's preferable that it's weekends, Saturday and Sundays, or not? This is very, very hard. Somebody's saying yes, who's saying no? Who's saying no? Raise your hands.
No to weekends.
Yeah, no to weekends. Who would prefer it to be Saturday and Sundays? Up your hands. That's a different one. It's difficult. I don't know what the answer is. 50-50.
I mean, I can only talk to for myself, but we have all the roasters we have at the roastery here today, and that would be totally impossible if that was a Tuesday or Wednesday. So, yeah, that's sort of the reason for me to have it on weekends.
We go to Holland.
I would love to have it at the end of the week, so closer to the weekends, because the majority, I think for most roasters, starts at the beginning of the week, that orders come in. So for me, it would be best if it's indeed from Thursday, Friday, maybe Saturday, then it would be much better. And also an opinion of, I would like to have it as a separate event, the roasters event, because I think for baristas are so many other things for them to come together, and for roasters there is hardly anything. So for us it would be wonderful to have it just for the roasters.
Robert is...
Well, it wouldn't happen on the same day anyway. It would happen on 2 different days, and there could even be a day in between, so you could even allow for doing it in 2 different places. I mean, there's 3 hours between here and Oslo. That's a possibility. There could be benefits to that, and of course disadvantages. But the good thing about having them close together, one after the other, never on the same day, of course, is that you could have some of the same lecturers, but they would need to present maybe with different angles. That could be a benefit. There would be different audiences anyway, at least. And I think that the fact that we all work with coffee, and most of us, if not all of us, that roast coffee, we happen to come from the barista community. So there are good reasons to hang out together every now and then in a Nordic setting as well, I think. I think it was nice the way it was done last year. And you're welcome back.
Okay. Okay, so it's a 1 day or 2 days? Two. So everybody thinks 2 days the best? Okay. Is it weekday or weekends? We didn't get back to that. Friday and Saturday sounded like could be agreed upon, one of each. But not at the same time as NBC, at another time, because it's for different people. Agree? Mr. Vendenbo.
I think before we even can decide that, we need a place to be and we need some people to actually run the operations. And without that, we can discuss whether it's 10 days or 20 days or 1 day. We need a place to be and we need some people to do the job. Robert did it last year. Mats did it this year. Who's going to do it next year if it's not Mats? Quiet.
Yeah, as I said before, I think it's important that we are open to where we are supposed to be. It's very nice to be together with Nordic Barista Cup if it's possible, I guess, but could be difficult sometimes in some countries. And also maybe we have to discuss the economy in it, because I mean you need sponsors, and strategically I don't know if it's better to have a separate event or bring it together. I cannot answer that question, but that's also a part of the question, I guess. And build a strong board or organization structure as well, to get good credibility according to the sponsors. So we have to have a sponsor kind of economy strategy here, which is very important to survive. I learned that from WCE now, where we have built that as a fundament very strong now, and so that's kind of connected together, with are we going to do this and how should it develop? Where are we together with NBC or not? It's just I think we have to work on the fundament first. The other ones are details.
To answer some of Mats' question, Björk and I are the administration for Nordic Barista Cup, and we've been doing this event as well. We continue to do that, but we need input from all of you. We need input from what was yesterday, what did you like, what did you dislike, how is this venue, is it good, is it bad, do we want to come back, don't we? All of these details you have to send us, or else we cannot work. Of course we need a strong board and a lot of subcommittees, but I haven't heard today that every time we ask people to join in, to put in energy, it's very few hands. So if we don't have the energy, there's no reason for trying to make an organization that is very, very strong. Because if people want to be in a committee, they have to work. Unless don't go into a committee.
For next year, so I mean we would be willing to do it in Stockholm if but if we all agree on that we don't have a Nordic roasting style, which I think is probably very true. But one thing that I think is really important is that you go to this event, you experience all these things, and you do whatever you can in order to show what you actually experience. I mean, all the tests we do, all the experiments we do, we try to explain it as much as we can. We try to document it as much as we can, so people can bring it back, do the experiments at home, or show all the graphs or whatever it is that we're doing. I think that's sort of one of the, because we're here to learn. I'm really eager to understand how other people roast their coffee and why they taste so different to the coffees I roast and so on. And I think that's sort of an important objective from my side. I don't know if you agree, but because otherwise it's so easy. You're here for 2 days, you experience so many things, but what do you really bring back, to your ground floor on Monday morning? Does it make sense?
Very much. And thank you for hosting us. Now, you shouldn't be. Johan, then you can more or less decide when are we going to meet up at your place. You don't have to answer right now, but I guess we could have an opinion here. Is it best being in the spring, the fall, the summer, or the winter? Any comments on that? Summer, okay. Because it's close to a lake so you can swim, or? Okay, yes. Other comments? So we'll get back to you on a date. So what's next, Tim, if there's no more comments? Yeah. I don't think that looking on yesterday, a lot of people thought that the 6 different roasts were a competition, and it wasn't. Should it have been a competition? Would it have been fun if we had cupped it and given points, or shouldn't we do that? So no competitions. Mr.
Having this cupping competition at Nordic Barista Cup and call it Nordic Roasting Cupping Competition, I don't remember the name. It's a little bit confusing when we are settling a Nordic Roaster Forum as well. So if you're going to have that kind of cupping at Nordic Barista Cup, you have to rename it or do something, because it's the communication-wise it's misleading.
I think we just answered that question, because if we don't want any competitions here at the Nordic Roaster Forum, then we have to take the competitions to Nordic Barista Cup. Make sense?
For me, it does not make sense to have it on the Nordic Barista Cup. You're sort of taking a little bit away the glory of the baristas while doing so. And the format so far has been not difficult to do, but not necessarily addressing only the roast. I think if you want to evaluate roasts and you add filter and espresso brewing to that, you're taking away the focus a little bit from just the roast. You're also taking the focusing on the brewing techniques. So what we tried to do in Oslo, was it 2-3 years ago? We also had the roasters cup the coffees and evaluate them for what it was, just in the cupping cup. And for me, that would make more sense to have 50 roasters evaluate the best roast rather than 150 people who work with stickers and water filters, and that's just my 2 cents on it.
It makes sense, but we just agreed around you didn't want any competitions here. So we have to disagree with ourselves, or?
I can definitely see Tim's point. The thing about, I met a lot of you guys in other forums or at other competitions, and this was different because there is no competition during this weekend, and I think that set a totally different mood in how we interact with each other, and that was really, how do you say, liberating in a sense. I think we connected more, because when there's a competition as a main event, it's a totally different mood, and people are more closed. So I agree with what Tim is saying, it makes sense, but how do you do that without creating that special mood that you all know what I'm talking about, I guess,
Other comments?
I agree
as well.
I agree as well, but I think that we could still be cupping a lot of coffee and giving a lot of comments and learning from it without having a competition, because that's a great learning experience, being 50 cuppers talking about the same coffees, but just without the competition element, maybe.
But we're still in charge of the Nordic Roaster competition, as I understand it, during the Nordic Barista Cup. So maybe we should reevaluate how we do it. We could still have it during the Nordic Barista Cup, but maybe we should reevaluate how the competition is actually done, and maybe we could actually have even more roasters attending rather than 10, because it's been limited to 10 because we got 10 filter brewers as a sponsor, and it's really hard to make 100 filter brews and keep them fresh and treat it equally. So yeah, we don't need to have it here now, but I think we should reevaluate what are we actually evaluating in the Nordic Roaster competition. Maybe some people can sit down and have a look at those rules.
So what's the decision? I'm totally confused.
I think the decision is not having a competition during this event. That seems to be the consensus, and I think it's a good idea.
The Nordic roaster within Nordic Brewster Cup. Changing the format?
Is there anyone who would like to change the format, or is it okay how it is, the competition?
I think it was really interesting to do the espresso part last year, but I think there needs to be a panel of judges who are really sort of going through the cups properly and scoring them properly, and that to make up, say, 60% of the vote, and then all the attendees of the Nordic Barista Cup making up the final part. But I think it was just a little confused in terms of judging last year. And yeah, it was so much to do with brewing and what we were evaluating.
In my mind, both competition, the Nordic Roaster Filter and Nordic Roaster Espresso, are very interesting competitions. And of course, it's logistics. We didn't do the logistics very well in the roasting competition on espresso year. We did good, but we can do even better. So I think we'll improve that for next year. But I think both competitions are very, very interesting to have in that forum. And of course, logistically, we can have 100 roasters in the filter competition. It's only a matter of logistics.
I still think we need to reevaluate how it's judged as well. And I totally agree that a panel of judges that are coming completely blind would make a lot of sense, and also they could provide really good feedback for the roaster to take home. Because one thing is the one who wins, but what about the one who comes last? How can they improve? I think that's more valuable than to win, actually, to get good feedback. Anyone wants to sit down and evaluate those criteria, or?
And also one more thing, is it a Nordic roaster competition, or is it a Nordic good buyer of green coffee competition? There can be great variations between the coffees people present.
I think we discussed that a lot of times. We try to send the same coffee to everyone to roast. But in my opinion, the biggest part of being a roaster is actually getting good coffee. That's what I spend most of my money. We could do both, but I think we need to evaluate the rules a little bit. See if we can improve it. It's been the same for 5 years. Any volunteers? Mikael? Bjørnar? Tim? Great. Yeah, so Jens, do you want to fill in, or?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that people here want things to happen, but the involvement is very little. So it's a matter of those that take the steps to involve themselves and make committees. They'll have the power. They can decide what to do next year. And I'm looking forward to work with all of you, because we need new ideas, new ways of looking at things. So all of you are welcome. Please, come on, raise your hands. Who wants to do the lecturing next year?
Would it be okay to have a few people doing that? Yes, of course. Then I would be happy to be in that.
So we have Johan, and we have Robert. And you too? Yes, perfect.
Should be enough.
Yeah.
Anything else? I don't think having a lot of committees will help doing this very efficient. So the fewer, the better, maybe, and keep it focused. Board of directors are the same as it's always been, or? Jens knows.
I have to get back to my papers, sorry. We founded this a lot of years ago, and it was a subcommittee under Nordic Barista Cup. And the founders are still the board members. It's me, Peter Dupont, Michael Renoir, it's Christa Katari, Adelheimer from Iceland, Morten Vennersgaard, Tim Wendelbo, Mats Johansson, and Johan Ekfeldt. And these are allowed to leave if they want, but some of them want to stay, I know so far, which is Johan, Tim, Mikael, Peter, and myself. And I haven't talked to Mats about this yet, and Addy, I know she wants to join. And Krista says he's too busy with his kids, but I always like to have Finnish people along because there are very few of them here today. Any comments or anybody that wants to join? You don't have to tell us now, you can just send an email. You have any comments, Mads?
It depends on, I mean, we have to decide what the board are for. What are their objectives? I mean, if you have a committee working with a competition, as you picked out now, for next year, it's perfect. So if we have a board, what are the aims for it? And they have to meet, probably, work with the visionary kind of statements and mission statements and the economy structure, sponsors, you know, that kind of thing to get this alive in long term. If you look at the competition, the forum for next year is more on the organization level. But you need, if we're going to have the board, you know, we have to, you know, work with it in some way. And it hasn't been active, the board, of course, because we haven't been really doing any kind of board work in the Nordic Roasters Forum. But are we going to keep this going on now and jump up on the vehicle, we need to have a structure to work on the long-term goals. That's my opinion about this. And it's very important that we have people can work together with this one. And maybe actually we should collect some people today and sit down. Those people should sit down in the afternoon, start talking. That's what I think. So we shouldn't miss this opportunity to have this informal kind of board meeting in that case today already.
I agree with you, but we didn't do a lot in the Nordic Roaster Forum for the last couple of years. This is the first event we've been doing for a long time. I think it went very well. Yesterday was a fantastic day with a lot of positive energy. The energy this morning is not so high in level, but you are here, that's good. The board will work on and has to advise the administration, which is Berg and I, and of course they will be working with where to take this. What is the mission, what is the goals, where do we want to take it? So anybody that wants to join in, talk to Matt during the day, he'll be here the whole day. I'll be leaving pretty soon for Copenhagen, but I think the energy here will, to me it feels like we should take this to the next level. Any other comments this morning? You're just hungry and want food? I guess it'll be ready in 15 minutes. You have anything? Thank you for coming. Thank you for spending your time. Nice to see all of you. Yeah. And we could also have a short evaluation on yesterday, the whole day. Good and bad, how to improve, what do we need, what would we prefer to have. We'll end up with you because you're having this diarrhea.
Well, it seems like one of the subjects for next year should be about ways of sourcing sourcing coffee ethically, and obviously some of it, according to Carl, we don't even know what some of the terms in terms of importing, exporting actually are. So I think it's important that we learn one of the most important parts of roasting is getting green. So maybe that should be a bit of a focus next year. Yeah.
I think we need more comments, so it has to go around. Yeah, all of you. Just good, bad,
once again, I had a great time yesterday, and thank you for hosting us and organizing this so well. As I said before, I would love to see more about the chemicals in the bean and what happens in the roast, because that's our profession and craft. Yeah.
Yeah, I think yesterday was great. I think everyone had interesting lectures. Personally, I was blown away by Carl's lecture and became very inspired. So I definitely want to see more and learn more about that type of topic. I also think that every lecture ended up at a cupping table that we cup together. I would like maybe to see that we rotate a little bit next year, because maybe we cup with the same group of people for one cupping, and then we change it up, because it's really interesting. I found that on each table, people were quite similar in picking out their favorites, but we have very different perception on describing that coffee, and I think that's kind of interesting, and also a possible topic for next year. But all in all, it was great, and looking forward to the next year. So.
Yep, I also had really fun yesterday. I would like to do some more of processing techniques and regions, and different processing techniques from the same regions, to go more to the core of regions. And also packaging, how to pack. Yeah.
I think we had a nice lecture on packaging at NBC the last time, and maybe some more storaging information would be nice. I'm interested in coffee storaging.
Sounds good.
Of course, I like the energy that I see in this room this morning. Maybe most of you stayed up later than you should have, a little tired today. When I listen to you talk about the competition, I'm thinking in the back of my mind, if Carl had a group or somebody else had a group of farmers who were really trying hard with their personal practices to develop great coffees, what would be better for them than to agree to send some coffee up here, some green, and your forum chooses 3 or 4 or 5 guys to try them. And then you bring those greens here and you cup them and you say, this is the good and this is the bad. It's not meant to be a competition where somebody gets a prize, but you're providing information back to the growers that they then use themselves to bring you better and better product. The other thing I'm thinking of with a forum like this is, you guys have strength in numbers, one at a time, not too much. But as you begin to coalesce as a group, you have buying power, you have significant influence in what's going on within your craft, as well as what happens at the farms. And for those of us that manufacture equipment, you bring us information that we need. So I'm delighted to see that you're going to try and keep this going, and I hope that over the course of the next several months, information will flow around through the internet about this and bring even better ideas up to the table.
Yes, I liked the yesterday very well, especially all those coffee tests and comparisons of different roasters too. One thing what I thought it would be more interesting if those roasting parameters or like roasting times and those would be more equal or the same, so the taste of different roasting machines would appear more. And so, but all this kind of tests are very good and great. They teach very much, and so I was really happy to have those, and maybe looking forward for the next year. So there would be those more interesting kind of tests, and to learn from those.
Yeah, I would like to say thank you because it's the first time for me to be in the Nordic, to join an event like this. And I think one of the things what I would like to take with is that I take some coffee with from the event, and I will join it with my coffee people in Germany because they can't be here. So I said, okay, let's go make a little event to join this in a second place, and to join, to share all the knowledge that I get here. So it's always good to have a little group. They can do it on their own, in their own home country as well, in the same way. So, yeah, great event.
What I would like to learn next year is to hear from other roasters how they import their coffees directly, because sometimes it's very hard to buy coffees directly from the farm, especially if you have a small amount of coffees. I would like to hear and learn from my fellow coffee roasters how they do it, how do they get it over here. That I would love to learn, because I would love to buy a lot more direct trade. So that would something for me to learn about how you get it from different countries up to here. Let's say 2 bags. I mean, I'm a very small roaster. I cannot have 600 kilos brought over from El Salvador or whatever because I cannot sell it. So then, or maybe share, you know, make share groups, or that would for me be wonderful to hear if that is possible.
More blonde Swedish guitarists. That's my suggestion.
Sorry, I just had one more thing. This is just something that I'm thinking a lot about, and it may be very local as a Swedish roaster. I feel I'm struggling a lot with the term of specialty coffee. I assume we're all into specialty coffee. And my frustration lies with, if I look at my clients, I struggle with fair trade and Krav. It seems like we all agree that, you know, that type of model is not something, I mean, we realize that specialty coffee is more, but still we struggle to teach our consumers what specialty is. It's a relatively unknown term. Last week was a television show on the main TV station here in Sweden about coffee, about the best coffees becoming more scarce, and a lot of other things. But the thing is, specialty coffee isn't even mentioned by journalists who make their living on research. I find that we struggle to get the term out to the general consumer as alternative to fair trade, Krav, and other certified, you know, companies. That's something that I would love to have a discussion with you guys about. How do we easily communicate what our product is and why it is better than, for instance, fair trade or you know, similar type of certifieds? I don't know if this is just me, but it's something that's on my mind a lot. So
I agree. 2 topics I could think of. I mentioned one already, which is about language, coffee language. And the other, it has been mentioned several times, what's happening at origin, how the trade is working, what's going on. What I think is very interesting, which is going on, is how farmers are working very experimentally, but also sometimes very focused on different processing methods. So how that then, of course, affects the taste in the end of the coffee. And of course, varietals becoming more and more important too. And that is a way to distinguish these coffees. You don't have to mention the F word, you know, because we talk about varietals, we talk about processing methods, we talk about money, we talk about business, and we talk about it in terms of how it actually tastes. So you don't even have to use the K word, quality, or C word. You know, so anyway, 2 topics, processing and language. And symptomatically, in Panama next year, they will do not 1 national competition, they will do 3. The washed coffees and honeys, 1. The geisha being 1 varietal, separate competition, and a natural being a processing method as a 3rd competition. It's happening on the same week. Speaking of it, yes. That's it.
I think that's it. The pizza is ready. Thanks for coming. It was great to have so many people here, so many ideas, and looks like it's going to be a good event next year at Johan och Nyström in Stockholm.